Hey, good morning, Randy. This will be a demo video for the Kylo master chassis that I did for you, and then a chassis explanation for the Shadowfoil props secret. We're going to go over the Kylo first because it's a bit of an easier demo. I just can grab my battery right here. I did leave the wires off because I know some customers don't like to have the wire cut like I usually do, and some do. So I'm just going to leave the wires off. Uh, Let you decide what you want to do for your customers. I also left the bolts off the handle for the sake of the demo, just so that I could easily open this guy up. So this is all complete. Same as the other 8 that I did for you. I think it was 8. But you've got your OLED screen right there. You've got 2 different 10 pixel accent strips that will light up here in a second. Board access is the same. There's your battery access right there. This battery cover is held on with 2 magnets, and they're located right there next to the negative battery terminal. It could be a little tricky sometimes to get that to stay closed. It does, of course, stay closed when the handle's on. But board access is lifting up this greebly right here. It's also on with magnets. So if you look in there, you've got access to your SD card and your micro USB. This just has my sound font on it for now, so you can load it up however you like. A copy of the config file is on the SD card as well, because I don't remember how I wired up those other ones for you. So I showed you how I wired up this one, and then I labeled each blade style. So one blade style, the first one will be the main blade. The second one will be the 2 quillions, because they're wired separately from the main blade, but they're wired together. Then you'll have your motor for the spinning crystal chamber. Then you'll have your actual neopixel for the actual crystal. And then lastly, you'll have a blade style for these 2 LED strips, because they're wired together as well. All right, so and then you have my boot up on the OLED, of course, that you're welcome to change. So I used all of the parts that you sent me. These look like stock V2s. If we can show that here, we'll focus in on that. So you get that one there, this one, and this one. These all came in the holders already, so I just left them in. I did change the wiring up a little bit. So this was a previously kind of half installed saber. You broke it down per my request. I typically don't work on sabers that have been worked on already. It's just kind of a rule of mine. So you're gracious enough to break this all down for me and let me start from scratch. One thing I would, like a few pointers on installing these, on these in particular. When you bring your wires down for your main pixel and your 2 quillions, you can take this main shroud off and join everything right here behind the shroud. Join everything, use shared power pins, so they're all using the same power line, the same LED line. Just run a different data line for your quillions than you do for your main blade. That saves a lot of space coming down into the chassis. I found that there are typically 3 types of wires. There's silicone wire, which I never use anymore. There's PTFE wire, which I typically get mine from Remington. And then there is the PTFE wire that Cal over at the Saber Armory carries. I don't know where he gets it, but I have to buy it from him, which I don't mind because I love Cal. He's a really good dude. Excellent customer service. But I do buy his particular PTFE wire, and I reserve it for any time that I'm doing master chassis builds. It is thinner than the PTFE wire that I get from Remington. And it's almost an absolute necessity on some of the master chassis that I've done. Now, you could get away with not using that here. You'd have a tough time. But if you have that wire, that PTFE wire from Cal, when doing master chassis, it really, really helps. All right, so that's what I did here. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and lift up the battery cover. The negative side of the battery goes towards that leaf spring, which is right here. So we'll go ahead and throw that in. It clips down nice and tough. We'll go ahead and close this. You also have a kill switch located right at the base of the battery cover. Apologies for my camera work, but you can kind of see that there. We'll flip that. So for now, you've just got my boot up to show you that the OLED screen works. You can see your accents going back and forth, and all of these doors open, as you know, but I'm just going to open one or two to show you the crystal. All right, so you've got your crystal pulsing right there. We'll just go ahead and open a few of these. I mean, you could drop all of these down if you like, but your crystal is there, and then when you turn it on, you got that rotating plasma gate spinning around your crystal. Your LEDs here ramp up. Of course, you've got your main blade lit up, as well as your quillions. Both sides of your quillions. All right, so we'll go ahead and close this crystal chamber. Get your battery meter here. I will say the battery that you sent me was completely dead. When I installed this and I put your battery in it, nothing happened. I was freaking out for a quick second. I tried my battery, which is in here now, and it worked just fine. So your battery just needs a charge. It'll be in the box. I'm going to go ahead and flip this off, and that's it. All right, so we'll go ahead and take this battery out. You can take it out with your finger if you need to. It's a lot easier to do when you're not trying to show it on camera. We'll take the battery out like that, flip it around. No wires showing. I tried to make it as clean as I possibly could. But that is your Kylo here. 2 switch setup, same as the rest. So the top switch is power, the bottom is auxiliary. I'm going to go ahead and just toss this handle on it. I'm going to put this off to the side, and that's basically that guy, right? I didn't spend too much time on that because I've gone over 8 of those, I believe, for you in the past. Let's move on to this absolute beast of a saber. This is the Shadowfoil Prop Seeker. It is a beautiful saber. Everything about this thing is gorgeous, top tier. It feels really good. You can tell it's made from quality material. But as staffs can be sometimes, and especially this one, this is a beast of an install. So I actually sent you quite a few different chassis pieces, and we'll go over that. This is a 4-button setup. So it's a running 2 Proffies. One Proffie, the power is right here. All right. The auxiliary switch for that same Proffie is this top button. And then the second Proffie, its power switch is the middle button, and its auxiliary switch is the one right underneath it. I try to keep, since these are smaller, I try to keep them located on the same board. And because your power switch was over here, I just figured the big one for auxiliary would be cool right there. All right, so to get this chassis out, it has to come out a certain side. You'll notice when you look at it like this, your switches are over on this side. All right, so that means the chassis has to come out of this emitter right here. Never try to take it out of the same emitter where the switches are at. It's not going to work. All right, so come over here. You're going to have to loosen up these 2 grub screws. Now this grub screw up top here, that's your blade retention. This grub screw right underneath it, it holds the emitter sleeve. So we're going to take that out real quick. We're just going to loosen it up a little bit. You don't have to take it all the way out, just loosen it. When you do that, you can reach in here and you can pull this sleeve right out. So this is a sleeve that comes out. All right, we're going to put this off to the side. I don't have a chassis tool printed out, but I did send you a chassis tool that you could print. It's 5 inches long. It's meant to go through this side. You will have to take this sleeve out, put it through this side, and it will help you push the chassis forward this way. When you're pushing the chassis into the Saber or you're pushing it out, make sure that you don't have any of these switches compressed. You know, if you have them compressed down, you're going to ruin the tactile switches that are in the Saber or in the chassis. So don't be grabbing it from here and trying to push the chassis in or out. That's not going to work. Leave these switches alone. Come over here, take this sleeve out. The switch side, take this sleeve out of the emitter. You can use the chassis tool that I sent you, and you can push it right through. All right. When you push that so far, you'll see your chassis pop out of here. You can go ahead and just gently pull it all the way out. All right. You just need a little something to help you get started. It is a tight fit. Mine is a little tighter fit than yours. After I installed it, I noticed it was tight in some areas. I went through and I modified the chassis so the STLs that I gave to you are fine. All right. I mean, actually, this one's fine too. It's just you won't have that issue that I'm having. So this is your chassis, and this is a long boy. It barely fits in the camera. It's made of 3 pieces, depending on what type of printer that you print these on. Actually, it's made out of 5 pieces. Sorry. You might have to do some sanding. This particular one, I print mine on a Bamboo X1 carbon. I don't have very much issue at all. This is printed in PLA Plus. I do suggest printing it in PLA Plus just because of these 2 pillars right here that connect both halves of the chassis. These are where your speakers go. You asked for 2 Proffies, so you've got a Proffie here, and then when you turn it over here, you've got another one. Now this one has a kill switch in front of it, and that kill switch works for both boards because they're both powered off the same removable battery. All right, so you've got that. This one is running Carl Chen NeoPixel connectors, but these will fit the Shadow Foil Props NeoPixel connectors, and it also fits the stocks. They're all the same size, which is 0.71 inch diameter. All right, so you can fit any of those in either side. You'll be fine. Moving over to the 3 switch section, I did also just kind of put your little logo here just because this is the chassis you'll be using, so I just threw that on there. All right, moving over here to the 3 switch section. Again, if we can focus, these 3 tactile switches, they are the lowest profile tactile switches that there are, the brass hats, right? You use the smallest profile ones. It's very necessary that you do that. That's what fits there. That's what's meant to fit, and that's what I modeled it for. The trigger switch is a little unorthodox. This is the first time that I've used this particular switch. It is a very small switch. I had to make sure that I was centered where the trigger was, but I had to stay out of the way of this channel right here. This channel runs all the way across the saber. I wonder if I can show it on camera. If you look into there and you see all of those screws that need to be accounted for in the chassis, and they're not really at night, some of them are not at 90-degree angles, so you got 2 pan heads over here for this ring. You've got another 2 over here. You've got various screws like this. You can see that in the light. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of stuff going on in there that needs to be moved past if you're going to have a chassis that comes all the way out. So this was a very challenging install. I mean, something that I appreciated because I don't get sabers on my desk too much that really challenge me as far as like the fitment. I had to print out 7 different chassis before I came up with one that had all of the channels aligned correctly so that I could get past all of those screws. So that's what's happening on this. There's not a whole lot of room for greebly work because if you'll notice as I spin the chassis around, all of these grooves here pretty much are for channels, you know, to miss the various screws and set screws and panhead, like all that stuff. All right, so that's what's going on there. Coming over here, I am running 2 22mm speakers. Now these are 22mm Smuggler's Outpost Nano Elite speakers. You can, although, put any 22mm speakers you like in there. I just prefer the way that these sound. I think they sound really good, especially when they're fully enclosed, which was something I was able to do. Now you'll notice on the back here, you can almost see that black shrink tube. That is where all my wires are at, coming from over here and moving towards the board. I hid them in one piece of shrink tube coming past the speaker so it wouldn't be an eyesore. All right, so that's what I did there. Moving up, you have a crystal chamber. You would ask for a crystal chamber. So this is where it starts breaking down into separate pieces. If you look at, we focus in on that, you can see the seams now, that this crystal chamber is a separate piece, and so is this upper piece that I'll talk about here in a second. So There's your crystal chamber. I am using a real quartz crystal. I gave you an STL for this upper and lower piece. It's the same piece, just printed twice. They are press fits into the crystal chamber, so you can use real crystals, put them in there, and you can adjust that however you like. This is on the verge of being almost too long of a crystal for this chamber, but it just fit. So you can use any crystal for there. If you need me to model you one so that you don't have to guess or you just want to print one out, we can do that as well. All right, so you just put those in there, press fit them in. They're super tight. Get it where you want it. Put a little bit of glue in there. You'll be good to go. You will notice when this is a separate piece that it has a hidden channel in the back, kind of right where these greeblies are right here. That's for wire passage for your main NeoPixel connector right here, and then also for your data line. To save some room, what I did is I used shared power pins, and I wired up my NeoPixel connector for the crystal up top here with my LED negative and my power going right to this PCB. The only thing from this crystal that I ran down was a data line. All right. Since they are the same, you'll notice on the back side of these crystal holders, there is a room for a regular NeoPixel accent. You could run two if you like, so you could put one on top, one on the bottom, and one accent could be run on each board. For this one, I just put one on top, and it's ran by one of the boards. Although the same config is used to program both of these, and I put a copy of the config file on both, but you don't need to worry about that. You won't be getting this chassis. On yours, or on this one rather, I put this little locating greebly right here on the crystal chamber that kind of stuck down and locked into the main chassis. I got rid of that on yours. I found that to be kind of a pain. I had to do a lot of sanding to get that even. So what I did was I just completely got rid of that on the chassis STL that I sent you and the one that I'll provide. You can line this up simply by lining up all of these different grooves for all of the screw clearances. It's very easy to put this in, line it up, and know exactly where it needs to go. Same with this guy here. This is a separate piece, like from here to here. Put your NeoPixel in there, run your wires down, and glue it right in, and you should be good to go. So again, depending on the type of printer that you print this on, you may or may not find yourself doing some sanding. Now, this particular switch, I had to dig deep into my box of switches, something I've never used before. And then I had to find where I could find these on eBay. I did find them on eBay. I sent you a picture, but I'm just going to show it here real quick for everyone else as well. This is a picture of the switch I used. 3x4 by 2 millimeter switch. Those can be found on eBay. Typically, you have to buy a variety set, but you may be able to find these on their own. It was imperative that I use this because it was a tiny switch. It still allowed me to stay dead center with the trigger, but also it was small enough to where it allowed me to avoid the screw clearance that I've got running the length of this chassis. All right, so that is an explanation of the chassis. Removable battery. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put a battery in. This is, of course, set up for an 18650 protected cell. Keep power basically is what I use, and I think that's what you use as well. So the battery snaps down in place. It does go into the chassis. It doesn't ride the circumference or the diameter of the chassis. It drops down in there a little bit because I have a particular screw that I needed clearance for that runs right over the top of this battery. All right, so it drops down in there. We can come over here and flip the kill switch. So I've got that crystal pulsing when the saber is off. Of course, it'll go solid when the saber is on. You could turn on any of these from here, but what we're going to do is we're going to put this into the chassis. So you'll notice there's a groove. I don't know if you could see that. You can kind of see it from there. There is a flat groove on the side where the 3 switches are, and it stops right past the 3 switches. That's why you have to put this chassis in the opposite side of the switches. So the switches are up here. You're going to want to put the chassis in down here. When you put the chassis in, Just carefully line it up. You'll notice right away if you're not lined up because it won't go any further. All right, so just carefully line it up. Put that chassis all the way in. I'm going to push it in with my finger here. You're going to press it in until it butts up against this coupler and it doesn't go any further. Right there. Now, for the sake of this demo, I'm not going to put this back in, but you would want to just go ahead and slide this in. Goes in just like that. Lock it down with that set screw and you're good to go. All right, but I'm going to leave this out for now because the chassis is pretty tight. We can come over here and hit power. Now, this trigger powers the blade that's opposite of where the trigger is. So now you got that side lit up, right? This side's not lit up yet. It's the middle switch. Now that side's lit up. The auxiliary switch for down here is this top switch right here. And the auxiliary switch for this blade up here is this bottom switch right here. Saber sounds really good. Basically what I have, I've got two different Proffies boards. I've got two different speakers, but they're running the exact same sound font. They boot up the same. They sound the same, so it just sounds really good. All right, so again, trigger for that side, middle switch for this side. Big switch is the auxiliary for over here. Little bottom switch is the auxiliary for over here. And you've got twist off. This, of course, is your sound venting. So you've got, if you look at this, although it has this groovy work all the way around, it's solid on this side and it's solid in here. There's only sound venting on each side of the ring, if that makes sense. That's why the chassis is wide open on those sides, so you get maximum amount of sound. So one more time, power, power, auxiliary, auxiliary, and we're going to twist it off. All right, so when you get ready to take this guy out, of course I don't have the tool printed, but you will take that tool from the side where the three switches are. You'll get that chassis out to about right here. You can just come over here and gently pull it right out. All right, a little easier to do when you're not trying to do it on camera. Pull it out like that. All right, it's a very awkward thing to try to do on camera, but so we've got that chassis or that crystal pulsing. We can go ahead and hit power from here. See, your crystal is solid. We can come over here and flip the kill switch, and it kills power like it should. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and take this battery out. I can do it with my finger. And I just thought of, of course, that's how I have my buttons set up. You can set your buttons up however you like. The main thing is showing you that it works inside the Saber. But that is basically the chassis that I came up with for the Seeker and your Kylo. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll get this Kylo out in the mail to you today. Thanks, man.